Hey everyone, welcome back to Hatter's Wrath Gaming, and I just want to give a shout out to everyone who's been reaching out to me and who's been subscribing and following these videos. I really appreciate all the support. I'm going to continue to do my best to put out content that is relevant and helpful for everyone. So I do want to touch on a video today that I think can be really helpful to players. RTS Mobile had recently put out a tier list, and as much as I liked the ships that were on it, I didn't really find the relevance in the officers that were on those ships because there's a lot of gold tier officers there. And CC Master has some great setups and has put a lot of effort into this game, but that's not going to be as friendly to all players as we might think. So, without further ado, I'm going to show today not a tier list, but officers that I think you should look for in the game. And the focus on of these officers is going to be the purple tier, so the epic officers. And I just want to show everyone something real quick, just a reason why I want you to focus on these officers before thinking about those gold ones. And the reason is right here, this 0.7% drop rate. These officers, without spending money, are extraordinarily difficult to get at the gold tier. The reason why it's easier to focus on the epic, the purples, is right here. We get that guarantee of an epic item every 5 chests, and more often than not, you get an officer. So it is way easier to build those purple officers up than it would be a gold officer. Now, I'm going to show you a couple officers that I use that I think are very good universally. These officers are not going to be set up for a specific ship or specific side, so Sovereign and Dominion, because there are some officers that can only be used on certain ships. So like this one's only assignable to these 4 regions. I'm going to show you some purples that can be used on anything and I think are relevant and helpful. So first up is C99, and I just happen to use her because she has both the power and the elemental for the ship. And she has this inflict confusion ability. That's every 2 rounds. This is a strong ability and is very helpful because confusion has a higher chance to inflict than, say, stun. And silence is pretty much useless because it has a very low chance, and honestly, it's just harder to come by those abilities. So the first one we got here is the Epic C99. Moving over to command, I like to bounce between 2 different officers, and each of them has 2 abilities that I think are worth using. So on my Cypher here, I use this physical damage ignores enemy defense by 20% for those first 4 rounds. And this is very strong for those physical damage abilities that the Cypher has. You also get this ship initiative on him. Now, not every ship is going to focus on those early round physical damage abilities. And the great thing about him is that he also has the defense decrease ability. The reason why that is good is you can have ships that are more focused on the strike craft or have those like every 3 round abilities. That's going to be more useful for a ship setup with those parameters. So that defense debuff works against that ship for any hits, including the strike craft. So that's why I think it's nice and valuable to have that minus defense ability, just in case you're building around your strike craft. The other one I think is worth trying to get, and I like to point out that she is only available in the Sovereign chests. So be mindful. I don't know if he's only available in the Dominion. I haven't really checked, but I know for sure because I was trying to find a copy of her and I wasn't getting her in the Dominion chest. She is only in the Sovereign chest. She gives two great abilities as well. So the first one here that I've been using on my Moonveil and a couple other my ships like Machina is the chance to deal extra 80% energy damage on normal attack. This means when you do your normal attack, you can also get an extra chance at hitting 80% for me, since I only have her at 2 gold stars, energy damage. And this scales up pretty powerful as we go up. So once I get 3 stars, it's at 107% energy damage. So that's a great ability. The other thing that's great is she also has an ability, if you can get it, called Counter Shot. And what this does is that close range Strikecraft, when you get attacked by a standard attack, will counter that attack. And that skill is great for Sunder to utilize those heals. So we have a heal in here when you're dealing damage to get healed. So that means if you're doing a counterattack, you're getting your first attack heal, and then when you get hit, you deal another attack and then get healed again. So you're doubling down on those heals, and as you get later, there's that other heal, which is not great. It's only for the Arco Strikecraft. Good if you're starting out early. So there's a couple things in here that are really strong, but for those heals, for those early rounds when you're first starting out, let's see, and you can increase your damage on, heavy Strikecraft as well, and Ograx and Arcos and Tyrannus. So you have options here to increase that damage. So you really get a lot out of that counterattack. So definitely good to keep in mind looking at Phaedra and those skills. Moving into engineering, I tend to use 2 separate characters with 2 separate abilities to bounce off of. So we've got excuse me, I'm going to say his name wrong, Pythagoras. And I'm using the close range Strikecraft damage received minus ability here. He also has the the long range Strikecraft ability that you can use, and a defense up ability. So he's got 3 abilities that you can kind of interchange depending on whatever setup you have. But this one I think is one of the best, especially for those mono-stack tank setups that you might use if you're using, say, the Morningstar single stack on Cypher. Great ability to have, increases that or decreases that damage received on them. The other great thing about this one, you get that ship initiative, so something like my Cypher, get that initiative boost up on there. The other one I tend to gravitate towards is Sydney. And I'm using this all Strikecraft energy damage received minus 50%. We also get that initiative on here, which is great. But this energy damage received is awesome because if I'm going against one of those ships that I know is going to utilize energy damage, such as Moonveil or Machina, I'm going to slap her on so that I take half that damage, and it's going to go up to 60% once I finish her out. She only has 2 other abilities, and they're not really that great, so I don't really focus on anything else that she has. She has fewer ability choices than, say, Pythagoras, who has 4. But one of the reasons why, and I'll show you real quick before we get into the support, that I don't recommend trying to push the golds, is that you have 5 potential abilities on them, and getting the one that you want is so hard. So for her, I have this power up boost, and it's modified by initiative. So if I have a ship that has high initiative, I can get more power out of it. That's great and all, but I really would have loved to have had the advanced ship speed ability to increase that initiative even more, to slap onto my Cypher to make sure that I'm acting first. And even potentially looking at something like this, maybe the advanced evasion, so that my ships will evade those early round damage uh, skills that some of the bigger boys have, the bigger gold ships. Um, so it's really a crapshoot on what abilities you're going to get, and it's just hard to really invest in those. Now, when we're looking at the support, I'm going to recommend these two healers right here because they are universal. And, sorry, I clicked on the wrong one here. So for abilities for Elizabeth, I'm using the individual repair. So every 2 rounds, one of my strike craft is going to get healed for 60% health. And that is great for those mono stacked builds that we're going to have. It's nice too to have an ability something like this, even though Elder and Strikecraft really don't have great siege. But if there was something else to get that siege boost, that is a great one to look out for if you're using certain craft. But really I'm looking for this individual repair. Now, as far as Bradley goes, Bradley has the all Strikecraft heal. It's going to be a lower amount, and it's modified by the elemental stat. So if you have a higher elemental, you're going to do a little bit more healing. But this is great for those 3 Strikecraft builds, just so you're getting recover across the board. And even though this is 28%, that's 28% per individual Strikecraft. So if you have 3 Strikecraft, you're healing them all for 28%, which ends up being a pretty decent amount of healing and is really great for that sustain. You're not going to get a huge heal out of this, but it's still good to keep you in the fight longer. And again, you don't have great secondary abilities on him, so just skipping over those. Now, I do have a couple other characters to point out. So we have Lightning. Lightning, this one doesn't have it, but she does have a healing ability as well. And I believe Lisa does as well. So those are also 2 to keep an eye out for. I do not believe C21 has any healing, and I'm pretty sure that Toranil does not either. I'd have to take a second look at them, but I just believe that these are the best ones right now to really keep an eye out for. And like I said, Lisa is another one. Lightning is only going to be assignable to certain ones, but she also gets that 1 ally increase. So she might be a good one to look out for those, for the ship, sovereign ships to get that buff out of. And again, I have a few golds here, but they're just not relevant for what I need, and I'm not going to get the right amount of stars on them to really boost them up. So Julia here is a great one that I would have put on the Cypher if I had the chance. But as you can see, she's not assignable to the Cypher. So I have to now look out for another gold that I can assign to the Cypher that has that gain initiative, or else I'm out of luck. And looking back here at, Drogon, great ability. Love the power up boost here. Only assignable to 3 of the Dominion and the Universal. And I don't know if I'm going to get another copy of him to even level him up to a gold star. But as you can see, he also gets confusion immunity. So I have the stun immunity on, but you can get the confusion. And a couple other abilities here which are very interesting. But again, they're just so hard to come by. And we got lucky that they increased the rewards for... Oops, sorry. I did want to show you another one here. So they did increase the rewards that we're getting in the battle passes, and I was able to get another copy of Gannicus, and I have him stacked up with the defense minus ability here. Now this one is 100% guaranteed, whereas the other is only 50% of the time. So that's fantastic to have on there. It's only a 17%, so it's really not super helpful. He does have an interesting ability here that I'm looking to potentially get on him and see what it does, is that deal additional physical damage. I'm curious to do some testing on that if I get the chance to see if that is a better deal than some of the other abilities. And then, we got some random abilities down here, but something cool to notice right here is that chance to inflict confusion. And one thing I want to point out is that gold officers of different sections have the ability to get skills from other sections. So command epics are the only ones that we've seen so far that can give out stun and confusion. Some of the golds that fit into other slots will have crossover skills. This is going to do a lot lower chance, but then it gives you that chance every time you're doing a normal attack, and can last longer than the epics can, as far as like every round can, or every time you do a standard attack it does it instead of every 2 rounds. So just something to keep an eye on as you're building up your golds moving forward. Now I'm gonna check sorry, I'm going to show these other ones here. You got the defense down as well. You got energy damage dealt in the first few rounds. And, we've got that 50% chance to put a debuff on damage dealt to you on a ship. Would love this armor bypass on this character, just to try it out. But I'm just giving you a look at some of the other abilities that we can see on these characters, just so you know what might be helpful down the road. So we have retaliation on here, which is fantastic. I want to see if I can get this one on this character. Another stun, chance to gain an extra normal attack. This is one that I actually would love to get and build up on a Kraken build if I get the chance, to see if that's viable and helping it use its skills multiple times. But I just really recommend focusing on those purples for now. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and keep an eye out for me in game. I am around. I pop in and out of the chat. But that's it for today. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do a tier list for this season or if I'm just gonna wait, because I do know that the devs are working on a lot of things. So definitely keep your fingers crossed on what we might see, and keep an eye out for those updates. I know the last patch was awesome. They hit a lot of the issues that we've been asking about, and there are still a lot of bugs that they're working on, and some balancing that I know that's going to be coming soon. So keep an eye out for all of that. But like I said, just keep tuned in, and soon I'll be dropping some builds. I'm going to go a little off course at the start. I think there's a couple ships that I want to mention that aren't the meta that I think have potential, and I'd love to see more done with them, or see what kind of creative builds people have for those ships. But stay tuned, and I will have more videos out this weekend. So again, thank you all. Have a good one.